outlines the implementation of the integrated electronic case management system for the entire justice sector of Rwanda, covering the Rwanda Investigation Bureau, the National Public Prosecution Authority, the courts, and the Rwanda Correctional Services. My name is Adam Watson, and I'm the Director of Account Management and Customer Success with Synergy International Systems, the developers of the IECMS. I'm based in Washington, DC, and today we have with us two panelists from the Judiciary of Rwanda, Ms. Angeline Rutazana, the Inspector General of Courts, and Ms. Nisasin Karunji, IT Business Analyst and Software Development Specialist. All participants outside of the panelists will be muted today, but we encourage you to submit questions through the chat feature, and we will have a few minutes at the end to answer some of those. French language translation is available by selecting French from the interpretation menu at the bottom of the Zoom window and muting the original English. Today we are discussing the recent development of the Judiciary Performance Management System in Rwanda, implemented with support from the US Agency for International Development. In judiciaries around the world, we know that court performance is usually monitored through a combination of case-related statistics and staff performance evaluations. Case statistics tend to be tracked through CMS tools based on well-known industry standards such as NCSC's High Performance Courts Framework. However, performance evaluations are traditionally monitored through HR tools and often do not play a part in organizational strategy execution. The JPMS seeks to resolve this dilemma by combining case-related statistics and staff evaluations to support strategy execution. So let me first welcome Ms. Angeline Rutazana, the Inspector General of the Judiciary. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Great to have you. I'd like to start just with a few questions. First, how does the Judiciary currently monitor the execution of its strategic plan? How are case performance statistics tracked, and how are performance evaluations conducted?
Thank you very much, Adam, and the team for giving me this opportunity. As you said, I'm the Inspector General of Courts in Rwanda. And maybe before I proceed with your questions, I would just like to give a very brief information on the Judiciary of Rwanda. First of all, I'd like to say that the Judiciary of Rwanda is made of two kinds of staff. We have court staff on one side, I mean judges and court registrars. And on the other side, we have the staff from the Office of the Secretary General or the administrative staff. And you understand that both court staff and administration staff, they all collaborate to the achievement of the mission of the judiciary, which is the delivery of timely and quality justice, which means that the objectives and strategies that are set in our strategic plan, they will be achieved if both court staff and administration staff collaborate. And you also understand that it is also very important for the judiciary to make the evaluation of their performance at individual level and at institutional level. Now, coming to your questions, I would like to say that currently, maybe another thing I would like to mention before is that since 2016, as you mentioned, Rwanda is using the Integrated Electronic Case Management System, IECMS, in our courts. And this has allowed us to be able to track the work which is done by court staff and their performance in more easy and effective way. Before we start using IECMS, the evaluation of court performance was not that easy because we would have a person from the administration staff who would go from department to department collecting information and reports so that we come up with a general report on the performance of the courts and the administration staff. And it wasn't easy, and I would even say that that wasn't the effective way to do the evaluation. But when we started using the IECMS, we started making automatic reports from the IECMS, and that will give us a more accurate information and in a very short time. And as you said, we are now trying to put in place the Judicial Performance and Monitoring Evaluation System, which is a system that will allow us to monitor and evaluate what the work which is being done by the staff on a regular basis. And this will be done by staff supervisors instead of having a person collecting reports from different departments. So each supervisor will be monitoring and evaluating the work done by his subordinates on a regular basis. And this will, I'm confident this will give a more accurate information, and this will also allow the judiciary to have more information on how the work is being done and what are the gaps, and we will be able to adopt strategies to be able to achieve better our mission. I think that's what I can say for now.
Right. Yeah, that's a great summary. Is this process being done every year currently? Is it a 5-year process? How frequently are you doing your strategic planning and then reviewing results?
The strategic plan, we do it for a certain period of time. Like currently we have a strategic plan covering 2018-2014. This is almost 6-7 years.
Right.
But the evaluation of staff performance and the institution performance is done every year, at the end of every year. Mm-hmm. But as I said, with JPMS, we'll be able to do it on a regular basis and be able to adopt adequate strategies to be able to achieve our mission. Thank you.
Right. So you mentioned 2 sources of data: the case statistics that are coming from the IECMS, and then these staff performance evaluations. Could you give us some examples of the type of things that you're interested in looking at, the types of data, the types of statistics that you're interested in?
For example, we can be interested in knowing the number, for example, the number of cases that are adjourned by a judge per month compared to the number of cases that were allocated to the judge. You understand that this is in line with the mission of delivering timely justice. Because if a case is adjourned 1 or more than 1 time, this will delay the process. We can also be interested in knowing the total number of cases judged by a judge per month compared to the number of cases that were allocated to him. I can also mention the cases that are overturned at the appellate level. This will give an information on the quality of the judgments that are rendered by a judge. I can mention the number of days it takes for a judge to deliver a judgment compared to the time provided for by the law. If a judge takes more than 30 days, because in our laws, after the hearing is closed, the judge has 30 days to deliver the judgment. If he goes beyond, that will be a problem. He will be delaying justice. So we have a long list of data that we assess and evaluate in the system.
Yeah. So before the system was implemented, how were you able to collect this data? Was it being physically collected from the different courts? Was this a matter of spreadsheets? How was this done?
It was done physically. As I said, there is a department of statistics in the Office of Secretary General, and that department was the one collecting information from different courts. Courts would make reports every month and then submit it to that person, and that person would come up with a report. But as you understand, that cannot be as reliable as if this was done immediately from the system.
Right. Right. One thing I really appreciate about the Judiciary of Rwanda is you're always striving for the next step and trying to figure out ways to harness technology to take those next steps. So just one final question for you. We know all effective institutions have to monitor their performance, but not all can do it in the same way. Different institutions are unique, and the judiciary is no exception. So what aspects of performance management are unique to the judiciary?
Maybe what I can say is what I mentioned at the beginning, is that we have two categories of staff. We have court staff who deal with the cases, and then we have administration staff. And as I said, we all have to collaborate for the achievement of the same mission of the judiciary. And I think what is unique for us is to be able to how can I say that, to put together or to come up with the same vision, and to have that collaboration to achieve the same mission. And at the same time, both court staff and administration staff will be also evaluated in the same way. The evaluation will be aiming at assessing whether their performance led to the achievement of the mission. So I think the uniqueness I can mention is that variety of stuff that we have, but with the same vision and same mission.
Right. Thank you. There's just there's one question from the audience I want to take now while we're on the topic. And that is, are there performance targets for every single profession within the judiciary and for any single task that they have to complete? Is that the case?
Yeah, it is the case. We have the Chief Justice instructions governing the evaluation of the judiciary staff, which provides for different targets for each category of staff. And the information in that CJ instructions are the ones uploaded in the system, and the system will be evaluating automatically. Because the court staff will be working in ICMS, and the ICMS is linked with JPMS. So the targets are there, and the information is uploaded in the system, and the system will be able to evaluate what was done compared to the target.
Great. Inspector General, thank you so much for this introduction. We will come back to you at the end with a few additional questions. And just a reminder, if you have questions, you can submit them in the chat. I will do my best to scroll through them as we're talking. Next, I want to turn it over to Ms. Nisasin Karunji. She's the IT Business Analyst and Software Development Specialist for the Judiciary. Nisasin will present screenshots of the JPMS, describe some of the functionality, and the envisioned results. She will demonstrate how the concepts of both case-related data and judicial and non-judicial staff evaluations are combined to track the overall results framework and inform decision-making. So Nisasin, welcome. Please feel free to go ahead and share your screen.
Thank you, Adam. Please let me know when you can see my screen.
Yep, it looks great. We see it.
Thank you for your time, and thank you for allowing me to present to you the concepts of Judiciary Performance Monitoring System. As my colleagues have mentioned, the Judiciary Performance Management System builds on the success of IECMS, which integrates the different institutions of the justice sector. And this means that all case processing is done within this system, whether in criminal or in civil matters. As the Inspector General has mentioned, the judiciary is very unique in its nature because on one hand, we have judges and registrars that are governed by different laws. And on the other hand, we have the administrative staff that are also governed by different other laws, and they both work together towards the same vision of delivering timely and quality justice. So as the Inspector General has said, if any of these branches fails to deliver what they are required to deliver, then the vision will not be achieved as desired. And as Adam has mentioned, one of the main challenges that is being addressed here is the fact that people work in a different setting of environment and their evaluations is in another environment, which means that there is a little or no correlation between the institution's performance and the individual performance. That is why the Judiciary Performance Management System is in place. I will talk a little bit about the monitoring and evaluation framework within the Judiciary Performance Management System. There is a long-term strategic plan for 5 years or 6 years, and that defines the objectives that needs to be achieved and the indicators of those objectives towards achieving the vision. And something very important that we bring into play is the element of weighting, so that if you have 5 objectives, which of those objectives carry the highest weight to achieving the vision? That means that the management as well as the staff are aware of which objectives are more sensitive than the others, so that if one is achieved, then the objective is achieved at a certain percentage. And in this example, we have objective 1 and objective 2. Objective 1 is at 80%, and objective 2 is at 20%, which means that if staff work hard and achieve objective 2, they have only achieved 20% of the vision. And that kind of weighting goes all the way up to the task. If we look at the example I have here of objective 1, it's also broken down to indicators and broken down to activities and broken down to the tasks that now individuals are going to put into execution. So that someone executing task 1 knows that this task I'm executing carries this percentage to a certain activity, which also carries this percentage to a certain indicator and objective until we reach the vision. I need to mention here that the activities and the tasks are reviewed annually at the institutional level, but also the departments can review the activities within the departments through the course of the year. And all these tasks and activities for the administrative staff is done within the Judiciary Performance Management System, will be done within the Judiciary Performance Management System. Whereas for the judges and registrars, it is already done within ICMS. So what the performance monitoring system does is that it brings together the activities done by the judges and the activities done by the administrative staff within the JPMS, and then informs about the progress of the objectives and the indicators and the activities. Now, that shows that there is correlation between the individual performance and the institution's performance. As I've mentioned, the JPMS uses case-related information from ICMS and also performance data from outside ICMS. By outside ICMS, it means that it will be in the JPMS to track the strategic plan and action plan implementation, the performance and work progress against the targets that are set, the budget allocation and execution, as well as staff performance per their assigned tasks or milestones. This is a sample view of what we can see from the JPMS. On one hand, we have the vision, the objectives, the results and indicators. And on the other hand, we are tracking the performance, the work progress, and the budget execution. So as the Inspector General has said, this can be done on a regular basis, on a monthly basis, on an annual basis, depending on how and when the management wants to see this. But most importantly, it can compare for a single indicator what the performance is, what the work progress is, and what the budget execution is. For example, here we have an objective of improving court services through strengthening the use of ICMS. So imagining that the performance of a certain activity or a certain indicator is low, imagine that, for example, reduced backlog is at 28.8%, work progress is at 41%, and budget execution is at 71%. Now, let us imagine a scenario where the case backlog is at 28%, the work progress is at 100%, and the budget execution is at 100%. The management will be able to compare and say, okay, everything we plan to do this year to reduce case backlog has been done. All the budget we plan to spend has been spent, but the case backlog is still very high, so that the management can then re-strategize if they have to and redesign the activities they plan to make such kind of indicator reach what they require, its performance to reach what they require. Another example that I have been able to draw is this, that compares different related indicators so that management can be fully informed of the status of the courts. For example, in this view, we have on one hand, the rate of case backlog. On the other hand, we have the percentage of overturned cases at appeal level. And on the other hand, we have the rate of case adjournments. So for example, if in this picture we see that the rate of case backlog is increasing, the percentage of overturned cases is reducing, and the case backlog is reducing, this will inform management that, hey, the judges are taking longer to judge their cases, but they are quality cases because they are not overturned and they are not adjourned. And then the management can decide and say, okay, we need to put more effort in, for example, increasing the number of judges or having another means of solving the case backlog, because this will show that the rate of case adjournment is good, that percentage of overturned cases is good, but the issue is on the case backlog. And also, if you look at the top of this chart, there is a functionality to filter by court level and to filter by court, which means that the management can decide to see all courts as a whole, but also can decide to zoom in a specific court and see how is the percentage of overturned cases in this specific court. What is the rate of case backlog in this court? And I also have to mention that obviously these are a few dashboards that we have been able to present, because I can't present all of them. But as the Inspector General has said, all the different indicators that are defined in the strategic plan can be viewed in this nature. And the JPMS is also very flexible, that you can design other kind of indicators and also view them any way you want. Another great functionality is the ability to drill down to court level or to judge level. For example, this image shows me the quality of cases in the different courts. It shows the performance of those courts, but it also gives me an option to drill down to judge case adjournment, or judge injustice cases, or judge of percentage of overturned cases in a specific court. That brings me to my next chart. Now that I have drilled down to judges in a specific court, for example, I have judges here in commercial court, and this shows me the rate of case adjournment for each specific judge in that specific court. And I am able to see the target, what baseline we had, what target we had, the number of cases adjourned per judge, the number of hearings scheduled per judge, and the actual percentage of adjournment for that specific judge. So that the management can go down to the judges and see which judge is achieving more, or which judge is achieving less on this specific indicator. The Judiciary Performance Management System, as I have explained before, has two sides. It has, on one hand, the performance, and on the other hand, the evaluation. So for the performance, it is comparing court performance and comparing it with the activity execution, and comparing it to the budget execution, both for judges and registrars and the administrative staff. But also it has the element of scoring. As the Inspector General has said, the judges and registrars elements or basis of scoring is already defined in the Chief Justice's instructions. It defines what each person does on the case, and what the repercussion that has on their evaluation. So, for example, it says that the law says a case has to be registered in 3 days, and so the Chief Justice's instructions clearly states that a case is achieved is registered in 3 days. If it is achieved in more than 3 days, then a registrar is awarded this kind of mark. If it is achieved in more than 5 days, if it is registered in more than 5 days, a registrar achieves this kind of mark. So all that is input in the Judiciary Performance Management System, so that the registrars will get the marks in relation to the work they have done that is expected of them. In that way, if the institution's performance is not increasing, then it will also be reflected in the performance of the staff. So what we have here is an element of scoring for administrative staff. They have a technical mark, which is scored at 70% and includes the timeliness and the quality. They have the support mark. This support mark means that I am going to do work in another department, so to support them to accomplish their primary obligations. And then they have behavior. So what I want to clarify here is that, unlike other systems, with the Judiciary Performance Management System, once an individual is given a task, he is also they clearly define also what is expected of them, what behaviors they need to have in order to achieve that specific task. And once the task is completed, immediately the supervisor will then review the task that has been done and make the actions on the other side of evaluation status to show that the activity has been approved, the activity has been revised, or the activity has been reassigned to someone else, and that as well has impact on the marks of the individual. So opposed to the previous times when the individual would sign a contract, a performance contract at the beginning of the year, and the supervisor will evaluate at the end of the year, sometimes without even remembering what the person did. Here, each task and each milestone will be evaluated to see if the person has delivered what they were supposed to deliver, and if they have exhibited the behaviors expected of them. So as I have said, the evaluation of judges and registrars is based on Chief Justice's instructions, and depending on this instruction, the marks for the staff are also assigned automatically, and the system automatically does the average calculation for the marks at the end of the year, and the supervisors can review these marks. With the support staff, as I have explained, it is per milestone that they are evaluated on, depending on the behaviors they have exhibited, depending on the quality of the work they have done. And at the end of the year, the system will also make average for them. I thank you, Adam. I think that's all I had to present.
Excellent, Nysasin. Thank you so much. Those were really interesting examples, and I can tell from the feedback and that this is interesting and engaging, and we have lots of good questions. So I'm just going to get started with a few questions from my side, and then we'll turn to some questions from the audience. So Nysasin, let's start with you. My first question is any of this data shared publicly? Is it available only within the judiciary or only among certain judicial staff, decision makers? How is the data restricted?
Thank you, Adam. As I have said, the Judiciary Performance Management System has two sides. It has the performance side and the evaluation side. And so the performance indicators are shared with the public annually in the judicial report, whereas the evaluation the evaluation of the staff is not shared with the public. It is an internal evaluation. It is only shared with the staff and the managers. So I could say that it's a bit of both. Some is shared with the public and the other is not, depending on their accessibility.
Right. Okay, and then what about the periodicity of reporting? You mentioned annual reports. Is this something that's being collected and done on an annual basis? How frequently is the data being collected or reviewed, analyzed, reported on?
As the Inspector General has said, the data is mostly reviewed and reported in on a quarterly basis and on an annual basis. But the beauty of using the system is that anytime is reporting time. They don't have to wait for someone from the planning department anymore to go out fetching for this data. Anytime the Inspector General can access the system and see the status of the court at that specific time and propose any changes that may be favorable.
Right, right, interesting.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, one more question for you on this topic. What makes the JPMS unique compared to other types of monitoring systems?
Thank you, Adam. I think for the people on this platform that have followed my presentation, I would like to say that this system is very unique in the way that people do not work outside the system and inform the system what has been done, but rather people work within the system. So if it is a task to, for example, purchase computers or any other kind of task, it is given to the individual within the system. The individual executes within the system and is evaluated within the system at the same time. So aside from the fact that it combines the performance and the evaluation, but also the individuals are working within the system. They're not working outside the system and then informing the system at the end of their work.
Right. So the system is actually structuring your day-to-day work, not just tracking the outputs and outcomes.
Yeah, it is doing that actually up to the list activity of preparing a draft letter. It also has to be within the system. And this allows people to take pleasure in what they do because they're able to see that even my small activity of creating a report or drafting a letter has impact on achieving an activity and the vision.
Right, so they get to demonstrate their performance. But this raises another question that I have, and perhaps I'll take this one to the Inspector General. I'm curious, has there been any resistance to this type of performance management? Any negative or unintended consequences? Do staff take this positively or negatively? Does it affect staff morale? How has this overall process of performance management affected your team? You're still on mute there. Inspector General, I can't hear you.
Hello?
Inspector, yes, there you are. Thank you.
Okay. Can you come again with the question, please?
Yeah, I'm curious, has there been any resistance to using this type of system, or are there any negative or unintended consequences from performance monitoring? How does this affect staff morale?
Yeah, thank you. Maybe I need to first mention that the system isn't operational yet because they're still building it. So I can't say that there is already resistance on the system. But what we're trying to do to avoid any kind of resistance is that we are, as I said, we are preparing the Chief Justice instructions governing the evaluation, and we are planning to make that instruction available to the staff so that they know what the instructions are about and what the evaluation will be about. But we also plan to have sessions of kind of training on that instructions and on the system itself for those who are going to use it so that they get familiar with it. And I don't think that there is going to be a resistance because this is an evaluation as we were doing it before, except the fact that this time is going to be done in the system, because even before we were doing evaluation, was being done physically. This time we will be doing it in the system, but there is no very big difference, and I'm confident that people will not resist.
Okay, thank you. Then just continuing with you, Inspector General, what do you think, what results do you anticipate from the JPMS as a whole? What do you think it will help you achieve? Do you think it will affect public perception and trust in the judiciary? How is this helping you achieve your mission?
I think the system is going to, as I mentioned, is going to help us to monitor, first of all, monitor on a regular basis the performance of the staff and how they are contributing to the achievement of the mission of the judiciary. And this will allow us to take appropriate measures at the appropriate time so that we can redress where we need to redress. And I hope and I'm confident this will allow the judiciary to meet or to achieve its mission better compared to the way it was before. I also think this will allow us to make an effective evaluation when it comes to our staff, because we will be evaluating on a regular basis compared to the way we were doing it before at the end of the year, when even the supervisor doesn't remember very well how the staff performed. And I think this is going to allow us to have an effective evaluation and an effective monitoring of the achievement of the judiciary's mission.
Right. Do you think this will be an interesting model for other judiciaries, or do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I think I have even seen in the comments that some people are recommending it, and I also recommend it because I find it very useful, and if they adopt it, they won't regret it.
Great, thank you. I have a few more questions for Nisasin on this. This overall, something the Inspector General mentioned was training and change management. And Nisasin, I know that you were involved in the entire rollout of the IECMS, and that this was a major nationwide change management effort to introduce a system to an entire country. So I'm sure this is no problem for you to take the JPMS and roll it out internally within the institution of the judiciary. But tell us about that. What is the change management process? How do you handle that when you're introducing a new system to the judiciary?
Thank you very much, Adam. It is true that the implementation of ICMS was very broad compared to the performance management system. And I think it's all work politics. You just need to convince people that this is their system and it's for their good and it's not changing in any way anything they have been doing. And to also show them the advantages of the system that is actually going to make it better and easier for them. So from my experience, I know that judicial staff, especially because they have low background, they like to be taught by their fellow lawyers, which is why I have recruited the Inspector General, and and she is already expert in this, and she will help me to teach. It makes it easier because they speak the same language and they're able to adopt. And obviously the trainings have to be done in phases, as I have seen some people in the comments have said, it may be very expensive. And yes, it is expensive, but when you put it in phases and you train people in phases, it makes it a lot cheaper. Yeah.
Right. And I just want to note also your article in the Court Administrator a few months ago on change management in the judiciary was very interesting, and just want to highlight that your experience there is really valuable. So in that, one thing that came up, I know at the IECMS was there are some environments where we're rolling out these systems that may be low internet bandwidth or no internet in some places. How do you handle that with a system?
Thank you, Adam. It is true that most courts, especially in rural areas at the time of launching ICMS, did not have adequate internet. And maybe now I said this for the interest of some of the people that are following us and contemplating on implementing such kind of system in their own countries, that to be able to handle this kind of system with limited internet comes into play the idea of phasing, as I mentioned. So when we started using the system, only the courts in the city of Kigali had internet. So we had to start with those. And in the meantime, as we were looking for funds to get internet for the other courts that did not have it. So as courts were able to get internet, we were able to roll the system to them. And it was actually very interesting because by the end of the first phase, the judges and registrars in the first phase were already trainers for their fellow people. But also I have to highlight the expertise of Synergy in getting solutions that can work in the different environments because with the limited internet, they were able to implement for us solutions that could help us cope with that. For example, the system was equipped with an autosave functionality so that if someone in a specific court was working and the internet went off or the power went off, when they logged in again, they're able to see everything they had done and not start afresh. And also, I know that there are possibilities of having an offline system, maybe especially for the performance monitoring system, for which not many people can work at the same task at the same time. So I just want to highlight that there are different ways that people can work around that, because there is no way we can wake up and change the world that we live in right now. We shall have places where there's limited internet, and we just have to work around it. I remember the Inspector General saying that we need to work with what we have to achieve what we want. We couldn't sit and wait for the internet to fill all the courts. We start with the ones that have it, we start with the ones that are able to work, and then we roll it out in the other different courts.
Right. That's great. And I'm seeing some questions come in, so I'm going to turn to some of those. Maybe while we're on the topic, I'll touch on one that just came in about change management. Just a second. Do you, so the question about change management is, do you engage external experts on this, or is it done internally? And how do you run change management? How do you get feedback and I guess monitor that change management? So one, do you engage external experts in this? Or is it done internally?
I don't think we have engaged external experts yet from the systems that we have implemented. We have worked on it internally because internally we already know what we want, and the judiciary already knows what it wants. The management already knows that this is a change that they want, and so it makes it easier because once people see the advantages of the system, once people see that it's not a burden, but it is a tool to help them do what they are already doing effectively, then it is a lot easier to implement such kind of change. So I would say we have not had any external experts on change management. And maybe also what I could add on what we do internally is that we create platforms where people meet and exchange whatever difficulties they are facing in the use of the system. So in the judiciary, we created a mailing group for IECMS judges and registrars, and every person that, every court in which the IECMS was enrolled in, that court would be put on the group, so that if a judge will meet an issue, any kind of issue in the use of the system, they'll just post it on the group, and other judges that are already started using the system will respond to that kind of question. So basically bringing people together to talk about their issues makes them resolve them without even IT people getting involved.
Thank you. We have a question about.
I hope I got the question right.
Yeah. No, I think that was good. What question about system security? How do you ensure the safety of the data?
Yeah, thank you for that question. we look at the different levels of data security, whether on application level or on database level or network level, whether it is accessibility, giving permissions, or giving passwords. And actually, the most beautiful thing about IECMS and Judiciary Performance Management System is that not only can we restrict people to accessing the system or accessing different functionalities, but we can limit them even up to the field level. So if a form has 3 fields or 4 fields, we can restrict a person and say, you will have access to only one of these fields. And we can restrict that access also based on the status of that item. So for example, for case management, if a case is under review to be allocated case number, what a registrar can access at that moment is different from what they access when a case is under hearing. And the same for Judiciary Performance Management System. Yeah, so we really go all the way down to limiting the accessibility of a singular particular field, depending on the level of the task or the level of the case at a time.
Right. Another question for you, Nisasin. How do you ensure personal participation or that people actually enter the data? I think you've already touched on this, but I think it bears repeating. How do you incentivize people to participate and share accurate data?
Thank you for that question again, Adam. Okay, so let me give an example of a case management system. When it was implemented, the Chief Justice gave an instruction and said, from this day on, we will receive only cases that are submitted through the system. So that way, the information correction is not a push, but it's a pull. So when the court started using the system, that had to impact the prosecution to start using the system, because there is no way they could send their cases to court if it was not in the system. And also this kind of monitoring and reporting that is done on the daily basis means that if you don't put in the real information that is needed, the system reports you, the system lets you out. So when they do a reporting, for example, of the number of cases that were judged, and a judge has not put in information in the system to show that he has judged this number of cases, the system only reports on what has been done. And then the management follows up on them and says, well, how come you only judged 5 cases? But also with the performance management system, it becomes easier because evaluation of staff is really personal. So for example, if Chief Justice instruction says that a judge has to hear at least 15 cases, and there is a certain judge X that doesn't fill the system, so he only judges cases outside the system is going to report that this person has only judged 5 cases out of 15 cases. And with that comes the impact on his marks. So I would say that with this kind of stuff, it is better to look at it from the pull perspective than the push perspective.
Right, so there's very much a natural incentive for people to enter the data. If the system is measuring their tasks, then they want to demonstrate that they're doing their work. So it pulls the data into the system.
Yeah.
That's really good. So another slightly technical question, and I don't know the answer to this. How is the breakdown of the tasks for the individuals weighted? How is that process done? How do you provide a weight for each of the tasks? How do you decide, is this task worth 80% or worth 20%?
Yeah, thank you. That is a very interesting question. So as I have said, the objective and the indicators are decided within the strategic plan. So when they're designing the strategic plan and they come up with these objectives, the same team that is designing these objectives has to define the weight of each objective. So if, for example, in the judiciary, And they do this obviously depending on the business of the judiciary. So for example, in the judiciary, if they have 3 objectives, and one objective is to improve the quality of judgments, the other objective is to increase the timeliness of judgments, and the other objective is to increase the use of ICMS. Then they have to sit and say, what is the ratio of all these 3 objectives towards achieving the vision? And when that is done, for the activities, each department the department heads sit together and define the different activities that are going to help them to achieve the different indicators. And with that, they also have to ask if, for example, an activity is purchasing a laptop, what tasks need to be done in order to achieve the activity of buying a laptop. So if it is a market survey, what if the market survey is not done? How will this affect the activity? If the next step is terms of reference, what if the terms of references are not done? How will it affect the activity? So I would say that the weight of the milestone is done by the department heads, because they need to understand what each person within their department is required of to achieve that activity, and what impact it would have to the activity if such milestone is not completed. So
Right.
there is no generic weighting for all milestones or all activities. It varies from department to department, depending on what milestones they actually have to implement and their weights as such.
Right. I think we have about 5 minutes left, so we might take 1 or 2 more. This next question is about, so case adjournments can be caused by many different reasons, right? So this could depend on many different actors in the case: the judges, the prosecutors, the lawyers. How do you handle this in the system?
Yeah, thank you very much. Actually, the reasons of adjournment are already defined by the law of why a case can be adjourned, or why a pretrial, a hearing can be adjourned. And the Chief Justice's instructions are very clear with this. We go through each and every reason of adjournment and say that if a case is adjourned for justifiable reasons defined by the law, for example, request for representation or more investigation or something like that, it could be caused by the other actors, or it could be caused from the judge or the registrar, but it is justifiable. For example, there's a training or something like that. So the Chief Justice's instructions already defines what will be done in that instance. And the thing is, if this kind of adjournments happen, then they are justified. They don't have to impact an individual's performance. But if an individual adjourns a case for reasons of maybe forgot the hearing was there, then that is really not justifiable, and as such they would lose marks depending on basing on the Chief Justice's instructions. So I would say that the job of the system is, first of all, to show what is actual, to show that, hey, in this court, the rate of adjournment is high. Hey, this judge has a highest rate of adjournment. Hey, the highest reason of adjournment is A, B, C, and D. And when the system has shown that, then the management is going to say, okay, what really is the problem here? Is it that in this court, prosecutors and legal advisors just are the ones that like to adjourn cases? What can be done in this instance? That is the first job of the system. It is to show where there are issues and to show where there are potholes. And the second use of the system is to say that, okay, if such adjournment has happened, it has had impact on the other indicators of the strategic management of the judiciary. And so if something is already defined by the law, that if this is done, it means that there is an individual that is not doing what they need to do, and their marks should be reduced, the system will reduce it. And if some of those are done and they are justifiable, then there is always a second level of evaluation. So the system gives the initial level of evaluation depending on the criteria that are given in the system and depending on what has been in the system, and it also shows justification for its evaluation. But in case there are some instances where the individual may have the system may have misunderstood the individual, then there is a second level of evaluation by the manager. And so it is easy to compare and say, the system thought Nason should have 20% because of what she did, but her manager thinks she should have 80% for these reasons. And then the institution management can be able to analyze this. And Adam, I have to add that initially, it was easy for the manager to allocate marks without basis because they would allocate at the end of the year for things that have been done throughout the year. It's really not easy to remember everything that was done throughout the year.
Right, right. Well, Nason, it's time is up. It's been an hour. I want to thank you for your contributions, your excellent explanation, and for answering some of these questions. Inspector General, thank you very much for your time. We greatly appreciate it. And for those of you who are participating, we want to thank you for joining us. I see there's lots of questions that we weren't able to get to, but we will be having another webinar. We'll be in touch about that. And we will also be circulating the recording. And if you have other questions, you can reach out to us by email. The contact who reached out to you and sent you the emails, Kachitor Matavosian, will be your point of contact, and feel free to reach out to him with any questions. Thank you, everyone, and take care. Have a great day.